Helping us to further unpack what this means for global supply chains, the future of the war in Ukraine, as well as the growing strategic competition over natural resources, is the director of the African Center for the Study of the United States and at the University of Pretoria, Professor Christopher Isike. Prof Isike, great to have you with us. How are you doing today? Well, finally, a turn for the better, I suppose, in the Ukraine, seeking U.S. support and some sort of protection through this long-anticipated minerals agreement, Professor. But like I said, it's a strategic move on both parties' sides. Let's deliberate on these.
Well, yes, you are correct that it's a change. The problem is whether we can trust Mr. Trump, given how erratic he is. Imagine this is coming off the short side meeting, unplanned meeting that the Zelensky had with Trump when they went for the Pope's funeral. And then from that meeting, we see this sudden, change. So the question I'm asking myself again is whether when Trump meets with Putin at some point, whether there will not be another change that can jeopardize all of this. And that's why I agree with the comments of the first interviewee there in Ukraine, who said that the world is a cruel place. The world doesn't care about them. Because you could also ask why the US, for example, is not adopting the same approach to the war that Israel is waging against the Palestinians, for example. Mm-hmm. They spend billions and billions of dollars while they're extracting development finance and development investments from Ukraine, are not doing the same thing for Israel if the issue here is about money.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting views indeed there, Professor, because I suppose going back to my intro there about what this actually means for global supply chains, as well as, of course, the current fight for control of natural resources, particularly, we're seeing here in Africa, it's happening in the DRC as well as in Burkina Faso. But backtracking a little bit, previous iterations of this deal, Professor, were actually viewed by many to be quite exploitative of Ukraine's natural resources, state institutions alongside infrastructure. And we understand that now the latest one actually appears to be more favorable to Kiev, wherein Ukraine maintains full control over subsoil infrastructure as well as other natural resources. And as I said, apparently does not provide for any debt obligation, which I suppose is a great thing for war-riddled Ukraine.
Yeah, well, the debt obligation was laughable in the first instance, but I agree with you that this is a much better deal for the Ukrainians, although it's short of the security guarantees that they want. But the thinking there again is that if America is going to be disinvested in their economy and in their rebuilding, then of course implicitly it will ensure that its investment is kept, and that for Mr. Trump is very important. So this is a very good deal, better than where we were with this in February, and it has positive implications also for the world, for Africa, certainly because of the supply chains that have been cut short in terms of grains and energy supply through the Black Sea that has affected the cost of living in countries like South Africa and elsewhere in the continent.
Mm-hmm. But Professor, this is not at all what Zelensky had initially espoused. He had wanted complete allegiance as well as an induction into NATO. So this is basically like, okay, we will assist you in some cases, but the rest you're going to have to fend for yourselves type of deal.
Well, the good thing about this deal is that there is now no hindrance to Ukraine's ambition to join the EU. They've long aspired to join the EU, and the talks to join began last June, and it's ongoing. There were concerns that the US was not supportive of this, so this has changed that. So it's in that front it is good, because as soon as the Ukraine joins the EU, its membership of NATO gets escalated or gets upgraded, moves an inch, which is eventually good for it in the long term.
And of course, this does not at all guarantee a ceasefire there, Prof. I'm sure you heard some references there that this was, of course, a step in the right direction to achieving an eventual ceasefire. There's still that thorny issue, but this is one part of the battle. Now that the Ukraine has regained bilateral ties with the United States, do you think that it becomes easy for the U.S. to influence Russia in ending the war just based off of this agreement alone?
Well, like we all know, Mr. Trump is very transactional. So now he has something to justify his involvement, to justify whatever ammunition that will be sent to Ukraine. Makes him sleep easy at night, makes him explain to the U.S. And you heard the Treasury Secretary also reiterate the fact that America is not going to be sharing from the prosperity that will come from Ukraine's rebuilding. So everyone is happy, and it means that he will be committed.
Let's talk about the taxation and tariffs, Professor, because I'm looking at Article 5 of this minerals agreement. It says, in recognition of the fact that the economic activity that is related to the partnership will take place in the Ukraine, the government of Ukraine then shall take all actions necessary to ensure that any and all income of the partnership, including any such income that is allocable to the U.S. partner. So this is where it goes back to that issue again of the global supply chain.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what will happen. But again, remember, it also says that for the first 10 years of the deal, many of the profits will be reinvested in Ukraine. And if that is so, the world will also tend to benefit because ultimately one of the things that the Ukrainians will take from all of this war is to begin to look more inwards and take themselves more seriously. They are supposed to be a much, much richer country than they have been, but they have had issues of corruption and mismanagement that have undermined their potential to be a developed country. So hopefully they will emerge from this better and stronger than they have ever been since 1991.
That is the general hope there, Professor. Thank you so much, as always, for your input. That is Professor Christopher Isike. He's the Director at Access at the University of Pretoria on the Ukraine-US minerals deal.